Raquel Pennington and Myra Bueno Silva was a barn burner last night at UFC 297. And when I say that, I mean burn the barn down, get rid of women's bantamweight because, God, that fight was awful. We're talking UFC 297 today. And, yeah, there's a lot to be desired leaving from this card. You know, Dricus Du Plessis and Raquel Pennington are the two new champions, and so what? Like, it feels like, honestly, the only one that really felt like, the only fight that felt like it mattered was Dricus Du Plessis and Sean Strickland, which Du Plessis won. So first things first, Canadian Bacon 8220. I made my bed. Suck it. Oh, man. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about UFC 297 today. Sean Strickland and Dricus Du Plessis. How did I forget the champ's name? So, yeah, Du Plessis got the win, a split decision. I personally scored it for Sean Strickland at UFC 297, but I said to a couple friends of mine, I'm like, look, I can understand which way this goes, either way. I can understand if Du Plessis gets the win because there's like 2 or 3 in there that are swing rounds, really, that would be good for Du Plessis or for Sean Strickland. It looks like Dricus Du Plessis got the card on most of them, so, you know, shout out to that. That was really cool. But this fight really, it was interesting because, you know, Sean Strickland against Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland was really on the front foot, and that's where he looked fantastic. He did a lot more shoulder rolling as opposed to with Du Plessis, who he didn't do as much shoulder rolling, and what Dricus Du Plessis did was put him on the back foot, and that was the theme of the main event of UFC 297, was the fact that Dricus Du Plessis put Sean Strickland on his back foot, and that's what won him the fight, that forward aggression. He took more of the damage, and oh, speaking of damage, let's talk about Dominick Cruz for a second. Jesus Christ. He's about as bad as it gets this night. I mean, the commentary in UFC 297 consisted of John Anik, Dominick Cruz, and Daniel Cormier. Okay, you know, it was a good team, I guess, but Dominick Cruz kept going on about how the damage on the face is what wins people fights. The damage on the face is what wins people fights. No. And John Anik eventually had enough of it, and John Anik was like, actually, it's whoever gets the damage in the specific round, because Dominick Cruz was talking like, oh, whoever has more damage on the face loses. And if that's the case, Dan Henderson would have retired after beating Michael Bisping in his final fight. Dominick Cruz was just cracked out or something, because it was rough, bro. He did not, like, he kept just harping on us 3 or 4 times during the night. Oh, he's got all this damage on the face, he's gonna lose. Well, look, Dricus Du Plessis had the damage on his face. Well, Strickland was bloody, so maybe not all the damage. But yeah, so Dricus kept coming forward, and Strickland was slipping a lot of the punches, and they kept saying, like, they're getting closer. They never really got close enough to hit. So what I really was intrigued by with this was, you know, Du Plessis, just his consistency coming forward. You know, he did gas, but putting somebody on the back foot like he did with Sean Strickland, this is exactly what happened with Adesanya. Dricus Du Plessis constantly had Sean Strickland on the back foot. And fighting off your back foot is exhausting. And while Dricus Du Plessis is throwing these overhand looping shots just over the top, not even looking like he's a seasoned striker, Sean Strickland is still having to fight and go backwards and move out of the way and lean at the hips and all that. And it literally just wore on him. I thought before this fight that, you know, Sean Strickland was going to kind of run away with this in the later rounds. And Dricus Du Plessis kind of, he surprised me really, because when he came out in that 4th and 5th round, he was like, yo, this ain't a problem. I'm tired, but guess what? I did my job and made him tired. And Du Plessis, he did hit the body a lot. Yeah, so great performance by Dricus. You know, if you look right here, we had a community poll, I guess you would call it. I do these every week now. And we're 1-1 now because we picked Ankalaev last week, and this week we picked Sean Strickland at 64%. Du Plessis, we gave only a 36%. That's on, 66 votes, which not too bad. But we picked it wrong. I thought Strickland was going to win. Du Plessis might be the most handsome fighter with a belt. I'll just say it. He might be the most handsome fighter with a belt. And if he and Paulo Costa fight, whoo. I don't swing that way. I just think it's funny. Uh, yeah. So Du Plessis' forward pressure was pretty fun. He kept coming forward and stuff. And honestly, we talked about stylistic matchups with Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya. We talk about that all the time. But we also don't talk about like Jared Cannonier and Sean Strickland with a stylistic matchup. And this was very similar. So in that fight with Sean Strickland, I'm almost positive that Du Plessis watched the tape on this, but like the stance which Du Plessis probably got from Jared Cannonier. And he was doing it in the Robert Whittaker fight. No, that fight he was almost exclusively, he would start out in southpaw, he was exclusively looking for the lead right hook. No, he'd lead left hook. I'm sorry. He was stepping back into orthodox. So he starts out in southpaw with his right foot forward, which means your right hand is forward, and he steps back. And as he's stepping back, he's throwing the lead hook, which goes from his power hand to his lead hand. So the power hand side changes. So he did that a lot against Robert Whittaker and had a lot of success. Didn't get to do that as much against Strickland because he was coming forward. There wasn't a lot of stepping back for Dricus Du Plessis. So eventually, Dricus, he was coming forward and he was stepping forward through, and that kind of that Jared Cannonier had that exact same success against Sean Strickland. That's why he got the split decision also. So if you come forward against Sean Strickland, you'll do all right. You might eat some jabs, and Dricus Du Plessis ate so many jabs. Goodness. Sean Strickland really just laid it on thick with the jabs and the cross, and he did a good job. Don't get me wrong. This fight could have gone either way, and we'll talk about this in a second with who I'd like to see Du Plessis fight next. But Sean Strickland really did come forward. He landed a lot of jabs. He had a lot of damage on Dricus Du Plessis. He abandoned the teep in the beginning that he used in the beginning of the fight. And I didn't like that as much because I was like, man, that's really working for him. But maybe he picked up on Dricus Du Plessis. I got to go back and rewatch it. But maybe he picked up on Dricus Du Plessis kind of grabbing at the leg and stuff. And he wanted to avoid that. So, Sean Strickland wasn't a bad performance. This was actually kind of a pretty par Sean Strickland type of fight. He showed some really cool stuff on the ground when he got taken down. He, the whole new meta for the body lock is turn around and give him your back, lean into the fence, and fight the hands. And he did a lot of that. And we'll talk about Arnold Allen not doing that and why later. Okay? So, Dricus Du Plessis, he didn't really get to do all the takedowns, which a lot of people thought would be the X factor, but his forward pressure is really what won him this fight. And on the day, I think as long as you get the job done, that's really what matters. Carla Esparza got the job done against Rose Namajunas in the most boring way possible, but she became champion, and she will always be known as a champion for that. And in about 10 years, nobody will care about the asterisk next to that, like, hey, this was the most boring title fight in history. People never really bring up the fact that Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis was a snooze fest. Nobody cares. They put on exciting fights afterwards. So, Dricus, who does he fight next? There's really only two options. So, Jared Cannonier is in the running, but he tore his MCL in December, and he's out because he was supposed to fight Marvin Vettori. And now that's why Vettori's fighting Roman Dolidze. So, that fight might be something to watch for Dricus Du Plessis going forward, but they'll need another win to get something over like Israel Adesanya and Sean Strickland, the two that I think will be the number one priority. So if like Israel Adesanya wants to come back, he gets the title shot. I think Israel Adesanya and Dricus Du Plessis in South Africa, man, bring the UFC to Africa. Put Sadiq Youssef, Kamaru Usman, all of these guys on the card. Let's go get some African talent. It'd be great to have Francis Ngannou. You let that fall, and he's fighting Anthony Joshua soon. But like Israel Adesanya, he's the second best middleweight of all time next to Anderson Silva, his idol. So that's the fight to make. He's coming off of a loss to Sean Strickland. So I don't see Adesanya being ahead of Strickland because they're both coming off of losses. And Strickland has the win over Adesanya, so Sean Strickland will probably be ranked number one, but will he be ready to come back in time? Strickland usually does quick turnarounds, so that's also an option. But if Izzy comes back and wants the fight, they'll give it to Izzy, hands down. I have no doubt about that. Sean Strickland rematch is obviously the second option. Very close fight, split decision. One judge thought he won it. I tend to agree with it, but I'm not crying robbery because that could happen. And then you also got another fight to watch out for would be Robert Whittaker, who Dricus Du Plessis already beat, so I don't see him getting a title shot over, and then you got Paulo Costa. Those two are fighting. So if Costa doesn't pull out and wins this fight, that's two fights on the trot. He got Luke Rockhold, and if he beats Robert Whittaker, that's great. And if that's the case, then Paulo Costa could probably have a battle for the most handsome in the UFC, because that would be a incredibly pretty fight from a women's point of view. Just saying, bro. Like, those are attractive men. If I was in the room with my old lady and Dricus Du Plessis and Paulo Costa, A, there's nothing I could do to stop them, and B, they are so good looking. Goodness. The only way it could be worse if Drew Dober was in there. Anyways, that's enough for the sus stuff today. The other fight, that other title fight that was on the card, Raquel Pennington versus Myra Bueno Silva. What a stinker. We talked about it at the top of the video, but like, man, that was a terrible fight. And Myra Bueno Silva, I really hadn't watched much of her before the Holly Holm fight, so I know she got the ninja choke in the Holly Holm fight, and part of me believes that Myra Bueno Silva said, oh, this is me now. This is new year, new me, ninja choke all the way. And she tried it like 173,940 times. A lot. Why? Why are you going for the ninja choke? She's threatening it, and that really kind of didn't stop Raquel Pennington, well, whatever. So eventually, Myra Bueno Silva, and this is kind of the concern I had. I didn't really talk about much about this fight because I honestly don't even care about it. But what really kind of concerned me going into this fight was the fact that Myra Bueno Silva's never really gone in super deep, hard fights. And Raquel Pennington is like a 30-fight veteran and has been there. She quit against Amanda Nunes, but she's been in those deep waters. So when you're in those deep waters, can you keep going? Raquel Pennington can. Myra Bueno Silva obviously cannot. So I'm not really going to waste too much time on this fight because it was god-awful. Most of these fights were god-awful, so we're not really going to have a super long episode today. But like at the very end, Myra Bueno Silva was literally like laying there on her back, hands reclined. She's gassed out of her mind. 5 rounds. I said on X, I said, I'd rather put bacon in a sizzling hot pan without a shirt on than this fight go 2 more rounds. I was after the 3rd round. It went 2 more rounds. Oh, it was so bad. Oh, it was so bad. Oh, my gosh. Like, I know we have to have a women's 135 division because that's, like, the most populous division. But I don't want it. Oh, my gosh. It's so bad. Especially now with Nunes gone. Ronda Rousey could probably be champion again if she wanted to come back. Speaking of UFC 300, they might book Pennington and Rousey. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Think about it. Wouldn't that be hilarious if, like, Raquel Pennington knocked out Ronda Rousey? Because Rousey headlined UFC 200 and got knocked out by Holly Holm. I think that was that card. I don't remember, actually. But, yeah, wouldn't it be hilarious? I mean, Rousey doesn't need to come back. She really doesn't. Now, somebody I can see moving up is Valentina Shevchenko. For the longest, she's wanted to fight at 135. Nunes beat her twice. Really couldn't convince the brass to have, like, a 3rd bout. But now Amanda's gone and Valentina can move up. She lost her belt to Alexa Grasso. She's getting long in the tooth. Like, how old is Valentina Shevchenko now, actually? Because, man, she's, like, been around. Let's see, age. How old is Valentina? 35 years old. And at 125, which is what she fights at, that's ancient. And we saw that with the athleticism of Alexa Grasso. Alexa kind of, did that. But I can see her moving up and fighting Pennington, getting that 2nd belt and be like, peace, I am also a double champ. And then you got only women's strawweight to be good. Mike Malott and Neil Magny is the 3rd fight on this card, or the 3rd fight down. And Mike Malott was super hyped up. Obviously, he's a Canadian. They're in Toronto. And UFC 297 was stacked full of Canadians that couldn't help but lose. But Mike Malott took on the ghost of Neil Magny. And when I say that, I mean Neil Magny is not that good anymore. As mean as that sounds. But it was really interesting because, like, Mike Malott just kind of stood there. He didn't know what he was doing. He was much was made about his finish rate. So he was 10-1-1, and he had all of his wins would come by either TKO or submission. And that's all fine and dandy, but when you get into the big leagues and you can't just knock everybody out, when you face somebody like Neil Magny, who's a veteran, he did good things at the beginning, like kick his legs and stuff. It was really cool. But at the end, like, Neil Magny just took him, and it was only a 3-round fight. I don't know if Neil Magny's ever gone 5 rounds. But, like, when you get somebody like Neil Magny, you can't just, like, let him... Oh, he has gone 5. Kelvin Gastelum he beat. Was that Hector Lombard? He beat Kelvin Gastelum in 15. That was a 5-round fight. Let's see, what else? Johnny Hendricks he took on for a 3-round fight. Craig White, Carlos Condit. Ponzinibbio? No. Yep, Santiago Ponzinibbio took him 4 rounds, but he knocked him out. But, yeah, so Neil Magny has been kind of like the gatekeeper in this division. And, he's turned away Max Griffin, Daniel Rodriguez, and Phil Rowe, now Mike Malott. But also he's allowed the ascension of Shavkat Rakhmonov. Gilbert Burns, kind of an ascension, not really, he was already there. And then, obviously, Ian Machado Gary. So, Neil Magny really kind of, he just sunned him, really. And it was like 30 seconds left in the fight. Neil Magny gets full mount and just starts pounding him out. Bro just gave up. Mike Malott gave up in this fight. And I was like, man, what are you doing, bro? You're supposed to be the bee's knees. You in Canada. You getting beat up in front of your people. How's that feel? Kind of sucked for him, really. So, yeah, next fight on the card was Chris Curtis and Marc-Andre Barriault. Another one of the Canadians getting beat up. A lot of hate goes to Chris Curtis because he's friends with Sean Strickland. And he says some, I don't want to say goofy things, but he says some things. Okay, so I'm going to be quite honest. I might be a little biased. I've interviewed Chris Curtis in the past, and we've kind of kept contact, talked about things like Star Wars and fighting, and he's shown me some love on X and stuff. So I'm kind of biased, but I like Chris Curtis. Now, I would like him not because he's giving me some shine on Twitter and such, but because he's a fun boxer when he fights. So Chris Curtis really, Jack Slack's talked about this in the past where he has a trouble with people circling to the left, and obviously Marc-Andre Barriault saw that in tape and started doing the same thing, but Chris Curtis actually kind of looked better in this fight with it. Things I like that he does really well is he hits the body, which is really fun. That always takes it out. And with somebody like Marc-Andre Barriault, who has a good gas tank, hitting the body is very important. And Chris Curtis kept finding that. Let's see, he's a southpaw, so it'll be a left uppercut. He also found the lead uppercut to the body. He just kept pounding away at the body. Now, he didn't do it all fight. He didn't want to get caught with his hands down. Very good shot selection from Chris Curtis. I do think, he's older now, but he's a fun fighter. I don't get the hate. Obviously, he gets headbutt, and he got headbutt in this fight too. I get why people were mad about that. But yeah, good win for Chris Curtis. I was happy to see him get a win because, at his age, he's 31-10. He's been in the UFC for a minute now. Because, you remember, Curtis was, denied the UFC after a win on the Contender Series a while back, on season 1. Yeah, he did that. He went to PFL, got to the finals. And then he fought. He retired a couple times, but he comes out, knocks out Phil Hawes. When he makes it to the UFC, that is, knocks out Phil Hawes, which that's nothing. Knocks out Brendan Allen, that's great. Win over Rodolfo Vieira. Jack Hermanson beat him, and then he beat Joaquin Buckley, a great knockout there. And then Kelvin Gastelum should have won that. Another accidental clash of heads. Oh yeah, Gastelum headbutt him. Nasruddin Imavov, clash of heads, and then Marc-Andre Barriault, he won a split decision, which shouldn't have been a split decision. But yeah, let's see. First fight on the main card was Movsar Evloev and Arnold Allen. Ugh. I don't like Movsar Evloev. Arnold Allen completely fought scared. He really did. This was not a good showing for Almighty Arnold at UFC 297 because, boy, oh boy, Movsar just kind of did the thing. And I know, we're not supposed to be big on stats, and this is probably something I should have had pulled up ahead of time, but, Movsar Evloev, man, he just kind of ran through Arnold Allen. And I don't know if this is residual, so what was he? 5 of 17. So not terrible on takedown defense, but he just kept going. 3 minutes of control time in a 3-round fight, that's not bad. Allen had more significant strikes, but, I mean, Evloev just kind of controlled him. I don't know if Arnold Allen kind of fought scared because, you know, Max Holloway beat him. He took his O, which is lame, by the way. He didn't even take his O, really. Arnold Allen already had a loss in the before he got to the UFC, I believe. Yeah, he had one at Cage Warrior 69. Nice. Yeah, so good win for Evloev. I'm not sold on him as a contender, even though he'll be probably ranked 5th. I don't know what the rankings are, but I'm willing to bet he won't leapfrog some of these people at the top. I don't know. Brian Ortega, he might leapfrog into number 3. Topuria is fighting for the title, so he'll move up to 4 at least. He might move up to 3 if the UFC's smart. Max Holloway might be taken out because he's fighting at 155 right now. It's a weird spot. You got Josh Emmett. I can't see him above Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett just beat... Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think you got to put Evloev above Emmett. I mean, not above Topuria. Topuria would move up to 4 or 3. He might pass up Ortega in this voting round. Yeah, I could see him ranked at number 4 or 5. Evloev, another win, maybe fights the winner of Ortega and Rodriguez. It'd be pretty cool. But yeah, so yeah, I don't care for him. He's boring. He's kind of a hug and bug you, but very fast to get into the legs. I really like that. Sean Woodson beat Charles Jourdain in the featured prelim. Sean Woodson, weird hand stuff there. Charles Jourdain was just too small, couldn't get in. And I mean, Sean Woodson, I wasn't really like sold on him coming into the UFC when he got on the Contender Series. So, how did he get in? Contender Series, he beat Terrence McKinney, of all people. Wow, I didn't know that happened. Then again, Terrence McKinney loses all the time. He got a chinny self, even though it's exciting. Flying knee in round 2, after Terrence McKinney was dominating. Round 2, flying knee, got him in. Then he fought Kyle Bochniak, lost to Julian Erosa, which is acceptable. Then he beat Youssef Zalal, who's a kickboxer. He's decent. Colin Anglin, good. Luis Saldana went to a split decision. Some other guy, and now Charles Jourdain, which is the best win of his career for sure. So yeah, I mean, Sean Woodson's not the best featherweight. He'll be like right on the outside of the rankings, I believe. Him and Alex Sakaras would be fun going forward. Yeah, that would be really fun actually. Sakaras is why don't they have 15 people on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14. Oh, Lerone Murphy and Sakaras are tied for some reason or another. But yeah, Sean Woodson, super long, hard to read, hard to get in on. He uses his boxing well. Ramon Tavares and CD, that was a good fight, really fun. I thought CD won it, but they gave it to Tavares. Jillian Robertson, the best submission artist in women's MMA history, of all people, beat Polyana Viana from Backmount. 9 wins by submission. In the UFC, she has 7. Like, this girl's good. Like, and let's be honest, like, Jillian Robertson's not a world beater. She might get to a title shot one day or not. But, like, whoa, she fought Myra Bueno Silva. Good God, at flyweight? Ugh, that's a rough fight for her. She beat Molly McCann, Hannah Cyphers. Like, she got into the UFC very early. Ultimate Fighter 26 back in 2017. She was, let's see, 1, 2. She was 3-2. Good Lord, she's grown up right in front of our eyes. Yes, indeed. Jillian Robertson. Wow. Beat Molly McCann. That's a great win. Myra Bueno Silva lost. Obviously, that's kind of weird because she shouldn't be fighting that weight. That was at flyweight at 125. And Jillian fights at 115. And obviously, Myra Bueno Silva just fought for the bantamweight championship, and she looked big. Veronica Hardy, Sarah Froda. She lost to Macy Barber. I'd like to see that rematch. Beat Courtney Casey. Sorry, Gary. Polyana Botello. Good win. Lost to Talia Santos. We know she's good. Lost to Miranda Maverick. You got to go through like all the grappling stuff. She does a lot. Beat Priscilla Cachoeira. Oh, that's the one. Okay, we'll talk about Cachoeira later, but just keep this in mind. Cachoeira tried to gouge her eyes out. Jillian Robertson had a rear naked choke in, and Cachoeira literally reaches behind her and like starts fishing with her thumb for an eye or a fish hook or something. But she ended up getting that win. Agapova lost to Tabitha Ricci. That was actually a decently fun fight. Now she got a knockout win over Polyana Viana. So, yeah, I'm happy for Jillian. I enjoy watching Jillian Robertson fight. Sam Patterson won. Jasmine Jasudavicius defeated the ultimate cheater in Priscilla Cachoeira. So Priscilla Cachoeira is literal garbage. She's a terrible fighter. If you remember back in the day with Mario Yamasaki, that controversy where he let the Valentina Shevchenko fight go on for the vacant women's 125 title, that was Priscilla Cachoeira. She's terrible. Why she's in the UFC, I don't know. She lost 3 fights to her, Molly McCann, and Luana Carolina. That should have been a cut right there. Especially because did she ever miss weight there? No. She missed weight against Karine Silva. She pulls out of fights all the time. She cheats. She's now lost 2 in a row to Miranda Maverick and Jasmine Jasudavicius. She's a cheater. She's got to go. Anyways, guys, look. Check the YouTube channel. We've got a poll up coming on Wednesday for, I believe it's Delize and Hermanson. I believe that's the next card. I don't know though. But anyways, there'll be a poll up for every week on Wednesday till Friday for these cards, and we can vote and see who wins and who loses. It'd be cool. Just, I'm gonna keep track of the record. We're 1-1 now because I've done 2 of them. So this one will be number 3. Oh no, that's Delize and Imavov. What? I thought that was supposed to be somebody else. Yeah, what happened there? Oh, no, I guess not. Weird. Hanata Moicano, Trudober. Yeah, this is a mid card. I'll be in Houston. Molly McCann's fighting Diana Babita. Yeah, I'll be in Houston. So, yeah, working on episode 3 of 5 Finders with Ike Villanueva, who's fighting for the BYB Extreme Heavyweight Championship. So, yeah, that's fun. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it. I'll catch you next week. We'll be talking that card. We'll be talking John Ryder versus Jamie Munguia. I've got my X right here. Follow me on there. Reach out, post to me, comment, and say, hey, I liked your podcast. And then we got my newsletter right here, which this goes out so you don't miss it if you don't subscribe, which is whack if you don't. All right, guys, I'm out. Drop a sub. That's it. Later.